All right, so I really apologize, but I'm really going to be going through real fast, primarily because I have a flight to catch at 6:30 at LaGuardia, and everyone's telling me it's going to be really iffy, so can't miss it. All right, so let's start off with overall mobile trends. What I'm going to try to do out here is try to give you a view as to how service providers need to think about monetizing video content, especially video content that's coming over the top. Everyone talked about how data is exploding, and that's what I'm actually showing out here. It's growing exponentially. It's going to continue growing exponentially, and it's growing exponentially not on voice, but on data primarily. The 2 points that we are checking out here is smartphones and tablets/PCs, and both of them are growing. And you'll see out here what we have is, this is basically the world view, taking an average of the world. This is North American view. Both sides, you'll actually check video is #1 as far as the growth has gone, and as far as the approximate volume of data. If I look at from a world perspective, nearly about 30 to 40% of all data that travels over wireless networks is primarily video. If I look at North America, I'm actually looking at about 52% of all downstream traffic is actually video. That's a lot of traffic that's basically being consumed by video content. That's things like Netflix, that's things like YouTube, that's things like Hulu. Everyone wants to do that, and everyone actually does that without thinking what's the impact of that video content when you look at a service provider's network. So video consumption trends, this is another good data point that I wanted to show out here. If you look at what's happening is there's been an uptick on short videos clips, while there's been a leveling on the long full-length video content. And that is directly dependent on the device. It's very difficult to go ahead and watch a full-length movie on a small 4-inch or 3-inch device. But for YouTube videos, for like short run videos, it's the right format. My expectation is that you'll actually see this going up probably by this year or next year onwards. And why is that? It's probably because of the uptake on tablets. It's very easy for you to see a full-length movie on a tablet. So with people all going on tablets and attaching on tablets, this growth is going to start going back up. These are just numbers, but primarily what you really have to see is the amount of time that people spend watching video on different devices, and especially on outside the home. The orange parts are outside the home. And if you look at it, it's smartphones, tablets, and PCs. Obviously, everyone watches TV hell of a lot on the big TV, but not outside the home. And even out here, when you watch TV, at least in my household, guess what? Nearly about 50% of the time it's Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon. A lot less, I think, in fact, I told my kids the other day is, why am I paying for the cable? Because no one wants the cable. And I think that's the other thing that people are misconstrued about is the cable companies and the satellite companies, they want to sell a package. But the problem is it's not the cable companies and the satellite companies. I mean, if they wish, or if they could actually do a la carte, but that's not allowed by the content providers. It's the content providers that actually force the cable companies and the satellite companies to build a package, because they actually give them the delivery rights for one channel, but in the contract they say you have to carry these 10 together. So another perspective out here, Netflix, this is the US coverage for AT&T, right? And look at the throughput that's consumed by Netflix. If you look at, there's about 35 hours of video uploaded on YouTube every minute. That's over 2 billion views a day. Those are some of the stats. 20% of internet traffic during peak hours, overall internet traffic, that includes wireline, wireless, everything, is actually due to Netflix. The point that I'm trying to make out here is, guys, you can't ignore video, and you can't ignore over the top, which means you can't fight it. If you can't fight it, then basically join the club and somehow figure out a way to make money along with them. And there are a couple of different things that we'll talk about. So how do you want to handle the video? I think this is a classic slide from Ericsson. We were probably the first ones who came out with this concept of 50 billion devices. What we really said was that by 2020, there'll be 50 billion devices that would be connected, because every device that needs to be connected will be connected to a network. Didn't say that means over wireless networks, didn't say over cellular networks. It could be wireline, it could be Ethernet, it could be Wi-Fi, but devices would be connected. I think initially when we came out with this, everyone said, wow, 50 billion, that's too much. But now after looking at it, and a lot of analysts have done the numbers, and they said, oh no, you were very conservative. So where we were like way out on the left field, now we are conservative. But out of that, we think that there'll be 15 billion video-enabled devices. Things like cameras in your house, security systems, video surveillance. Every phone actually has a video camera. Every phone. I mean, last time at the Super Bowl, I think we saw somewhere around 350 gig of data traveling over LTE network. And primarily, that was video that was being uploaded by guys who are actually taking photographs, taking video clips, and uploading to YouTube or to their own websites and so on and so forth. And the other part was basically primarily video replays of things that you can't see because you're a mile away. So primarily, let me just first give you a definition of what is over-the-top video. So over-the-top video is all video that is not being provided directly by a service provider. So it could come over internet, it could be through dedicated streaming devices like Roku, Apple TV, or whatever it is. It could be internet, smart TVs. Every TV is a smart TV. I don't understand what is smart TV. It can't think for itself, but obviously it means it's got all the applications to get or consume traffic or consume video from these over-the-top content providers. So it's no longer that you're going to be able to watch this only on your smartphones and your tablets. So what is the big problem with that? The problem is video is a lot of data. A lot of data. And that data is driving on the service provider's network. So what does that do? It means that it's creating congestion. It means that you have to spend money and you have to spend CapEx to expand that network. But when you expand that network, you have to get a return on investment. So where is that going to come in? And that's basically what I'm showing on the other side out there, is the revenues are still flat. Because guess what? We are all living in this world of unlimited data. I know Paul's going to say that that's good. It is good. But it's good as long as you can monetize it and be where you're not basically losing money. And there is going to come a time when you have so much data that you have to keep on growing, and that CapEx demands are going to outweigh the return on investment that you're doing to your network. So right now, if you don't do anything, all these OTT video brings no incremental revenue to the carriers. Carriers' margins basically are squeezed because they have to continuously add more capacity. So what is Ericsson looking at it and thinking, okay, how can we go and solve this problem? So one of the things that we're looking at is basically adding capacity, because again, capacity is required because there is going to be more data that's going to flow through because of video. What we require, what we are also saying is optimize. Optimize your network, optimize the way that you deliver the video. So there is capacity that's over the air, there's capacity on backhaul. If I were not caching something closer to my end subscriber, it means every time I have to go back, I have to get all this content from Netflix or from Hulu or from YouTube, and then basically that's my backhaul pipe. Guess what? Your backhaul provider, or basically your ISP provider, charges you per the amount of traffic that flows through. But if you were to optimize it and actually have what we call as transparent caching and cache the data closer in your network, you don't have to do it 10 times because there are 10 people watching the same program. The same thing goes on compression. I have a 3-inch tablet and I have a 12-inch tablet, right? So I have a smartphone. Even if I look at something with high definition video, the high definition video encoding for a 3-inch screen is probably about 500 to 600 kilobits per second. If I now take it up to a tablet, a 10-inch tablet, it's going to go up to about 1 to 2 meg, which is a normal standard definition stream. Now, obviously, if I'm watching the same program on my 60-inch TV, that's going to be anywhere between 8 to 12 megabits per second. But if I don't compress, and even for a smartphone, I'm actually giving you 10 megabits per second, that's wasted capacity, right? Monetize. I know Paul doesn't like that, but I still think that policy and effective policy basically means being able to intelligently manage your subscribers' user experience so that user experience is not impacted, but its throughput, its actual data is not the same that you're actually delivering to him. Charging and control. As I said, there are about, I think this point was made in the morning, that 80% of your users use about 20% of your network capacity, and 80% of your capacity is used by the top 20%. So doesn't it make sense to make sure that top 20% basically pay for the amount that they're using? I think it does. I think it's fair. Why should you actually force the other guys by artificially increasing the amount of money that you're asking everyone to pay and basically subsidize the top 20%'s network usage? You shouldn't. What you can do is you can actually have market segmentation and pricing segmentation, and then have different caps. So all of a sudden, all the guys, like the 20% guys using 80% of the network, when you ask them to pay for it, they'll always step back because they are using that much of your resources. So the DPI and the session and network capabilities exposure, this is an important one, and we'll go over a little bit. This basically means allow and become a partner with the OTT player. Basically means, let's say you make a deal with Netflix, and you have basically given video data or data X amount of QoS. Now with network APIs and exposing these APIs to your video or your OTT provider, Netflix can actually come in and say, I am going to send down a video stream. Please give it the right QoS, and that QoS could be actually managed through those APIs so that they get better preferential experience as far as congestion is concerned or end device delivery is concerned. Now, all of a sudden, what you're doing is you're providing service to an OTT player through your network. And that is a very important thing because you own the network at the end of the day. And there is value in that network. And I think guys should go and think about how can I actually demand the value for my network that's being used to deliver their service. So this is my quadrant. And primarily, I think I've talked a lot about all these before, but oh yeah, delivering the content just in time. You know, like I think this whole just-in-time manufacturing started with Toyota and all these other guys saying, why should I manufacture all this stuff and put it in storage for another factory to actually use it when they think it's required? So why shouldn't I actually produce something when it's really required? So guess, guys, why do we deliver the entire video segment before it's really required by the viewer to be seen? So guess what happens? It has been proven that nearly about 70 to 80% of the times you'll watch the first 3 or 4 minutes, you don't like the video, guess what do? I'm going to jump to another video. So if you are actually allowing your network to download that video with full capacity, you wasted all that network resources because the guy never watched that part. So what you should do is basically you should be, So you should basically do what we call as bitrate throttling. Depending on what's required for the user experience, you actually throttle that bitrate so that you basically, what you're doing is you're taking those peaks away and you're creating a level playing field. Same thing goes from transcoding files, caching to the endpoint, transcoding and transrating. Transcoding and transrating is directly dependent on the device. Transcode your device to your video content and your bit rate depending on what device is actually going to view that video content. I'm not going to go over this. I think these presentations would be available to you, but bottom line is we've just gone through all these points. At the end is every service provider has 2 choices. Either to become a pure bit-byte player, and if you're going to be a bit-byte player, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So you can be saying, I just want to be a bit-byte player. Well, if you want to be a bit-byte player, you actually have to run a very lean network. So you have to run a very lean network, and you have to provide the lowest cost possible to deliver a megabit of data to the endpoint. Or you can actually choose to say, I am going to transform my business model so that I actually step up from being just a pure bit player. And that's what I'm trying to say out here, is refine the pricing model, as I said before, have pricing segmentation, primarily saying that you have just not X amount, which is unlimited, but you have pricing tiered structure. Tier structure where people are willing to pay, right? So you actually now redefine the business model with the over-the-top providers. So you can actually go and negotiate with them and say, if I were to provide you better coverage, if I were to provide better QoS so that your users can get better user experience, what is it? It's $1 a month or $2 a month? It's $1 or $2 a month that you probably didn't have before. And then, again, you have the network. You are absolutely intimate with your subscribers, which means that you are in the best way to actually monetize that by adding what I call as context advertising. Contextual advertising basically means that you send in ads that are relevant to that user, relevant to where he is, relevant to what he is doing at that very instance. There is a much higher price and much higher bang for the money from the advertiser's perspective to basically advertise to a guy who's probably just walking down the street in front of a pizza searching for a pizza. So now, if that pizza place was to use your network, so you searched, you know what he's doing, you know he's close by, and you send him a coupon or an advertisement just to get pizza, saying you're the world's best pizza. Guess what? He's probably going to go towards that. So the uptake on the advertisements that are actually sent out, which are contextually sensitive to what the user is doing at that time, has the highest impact. In fact, Google has made it a science. Unfortunately, guess what? Google doesn't have the kind of intimacy as the service providers have. You have something that Google would kill to get. So this is, again, goes back to the same thing. You can do time or day policies. As I said, primarily the goal is you take away the peaks and you fill in the valleys. So if you can actually average your network demand or network capacity so that it's a flat line, I know for us means bad because we're dead, but for the network it means that you're running the most profitable one. So I'm just going to give you a quick example. So while browsing a video website, let's say OTT, a user requests a high definition view of a movie. The OTT, this is basically where you're in partners with OTT, right? So the OTT video operator makes the request to the carrier or to the network. And the network actually now increases the bandwidth that is applicable or available to that user, or increases the QoS for that content being delivered so that you get the best possible. If this loop wasn't available, you would get best effort going in. And that's what happens today. So here's some examples. I mean, I know some people are thinking, oh, is it even being done anywhere? Airtel in India. I mean, again, I think one who said, if I quote him right, that's like, what, $6 or $6 ARPU? That kind of a market. Guess what they did with Google? They have what is known as Google Free Zone, that's available to all their users. Means all mobile web searches would not be charged, or basically their data will not be tagged. First pages from their search that they go to, that data will not be charged. Gmail, Google+, photo share messages, and 1 gig of free data would all come as a package, right? Obviously, they're not doing this out of, like saying, hey, Google, we love you. It's probably Google is paying something back, and Google is getting some information from these Airtel guys because they own the subscriber, which makes sense for them because now they can actually send out. Google makes their money all on advertisements. If they can actually show and prove that they even had a 0.0001% increase on the uptake and hit rate of the advertisement, that's major money. The same thing actually, so Movistar, Turkcell, and Optus, what they did was they created special packages around social networking and video, right? And then ESPN, it's really great because ESPN, one of the largest or the fastest growing business within ESPN is mobile video and mobile game stats. People love to go and see that, like last jump shot or the last football goal that happened, or like all the games, they want to do this instant replay. ESPN is actually thinking of doing the same thing with network providers. Another couple of places, SoftBank, LG, this is basically in Korea, and then what Verizon is doing out here with Redbox Instant. So my point is that all the big players are doing it. I think it's time that all the rural players and the smaller guys and the regional players need to think that video, there's got to be a way to monetize this video content. I want to let this be out here. LTE as a technology has enhanced the MBS capability. Now the MBS capability is one-to-many. It really comes out really good if you have like a game being transmitted, or you have multiple users actually watching a video content, or would be watching a video content that is, you can actually go ahead and have one stream and have multiple recipients. So the reason that I'm not going too much into this one is that this is something that everyone should be aware of, Well, first we need to deploy LTE. We need to have spectrum that we can have enough spectrum and capacity so we can carve out some space for LTE broadcasting. But this is where you go into the LTE broadcast. I mean, if you really think about how much money has Dish Network spent on getting access. Come on. I know he's a billionaire, but he still spent about $2.5 billion, and he's thinking of spending another $2 billion, if I read the reports correctly, to add additional 1.5 gig spectrum. That's about $4.5 billion that they're going ahead to extend spectrum. And the reason is because he understands that multi-screen video is the next big thing that's going to come across. And he wants to be ready by not just having 5 megahertz or 10 megahertz of sliver of spectrum. He needs a lot of spectrum because he wants to be able to go ahead and deliver those kind of services. I'm going to go over this one. Again, this is just a recap. I think we've talked pretty much about everything. And that's about it. I'm sorry, I just had to go through real quick because I've got a flight to catch. All right.